Glad you're in here with me for the Daily WYNK, what you now know. And this is the China version. So I am back. As I mentioned to you, I was in, let me get that camera up a little bit. Sorry about that. I was in Dallas, Texas for a couple of days, and with General Michael Flynn and a few others, got a briefing on some of the election integrity issues that are happening. I'll give you an update on that. Some interesting news coming Monday. I'm not a guy that likes to sort of get everybody excited. Oh, here comes something or other. But there's some news coming. And if you understand politics, as I hope I've taught you, and if you understand the law, which you may not know, but I do a little bit more than most, it's not usually the knockout blows that change the equation. It's 1,000 cuts, 1,000 steps forward, making progress. So there's some progress that's going to come next week. Hey, let's start by doing the pledge, as we always do. Let me put up the Pledge of Allegiance. I hope you'll consider standing with me. And we got the old flag I'll put up for you. Make sure I get it here. And we will say the Pledge of Allegiance to start. Here we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining, and I'll get back to the title here. The Daily WYNK, what you now know. When you're done with this 10 or 15 minutes, you'll know something important. I hope you'll understand it, and you'll be able to watch for it in the news. And if you go over to proamericareport.com, you can sign up for the Daily WYNK. It goes into your email box, 5 a.m. Pacific time, 8 a.m. East Coast time, and everywhere in between. So proamericareport.com. All right, this is the China version of what you now know. You have to watch closely because you won't get the help from the media. The media is obsessed with the old Cold War. Joe Biden is stumbling around Europe thinking it's 1975 or 1977, more likely 1978, where he's dancing with Iran back like Carter did, and he's talking about Cold War Russian spies, and he's worried about Putin and all this stuff. Meanwhile, halfway across the globe, from Europe at least, or from here, the communist Chinese regime continues its march to dominate the world. Did you know Joe Biden proposed in the big G7 meetings, and where it was the Build Back Better world plan? And you know what Europe and the rest of the world said? Hey, if you want to help us build our infrastructure, we're totally happy for you to do that. We're thrilled. Send us money. And you know what they didn't say? We'll use American workers because we're not going to get workers over there. They're not going to do that. So we're going to build back better world by sending money to Europe. We're already sending money back to the World Health Organization, all these entities that Trump pulled back from. So the Chinese are laughing. The Chinese are laughing, watching the American government led by Biden lurch back to the old model. And late last night, the news broke that a senior Chinese official, we don't know more details yet, but it's out there now, defected a few months ago. And he was involved heavily in their highest level of intelligence, it sounds like. We'll find out more now that I think it's out there. But what I'm hoping is this will begin a shift in the mindset. It should for you. What you now know, what we now know, what you now know, and I'm telling you, is the Chinese regime we know they're sending spies, right? We know they're sending spies in our universities, the Confucius Institutes. We know they're sending spies in businesses. It happens in universities. We got a couple of arrests of researchers and such. So the mind shift needs to change from worrying about, I don't know, whether it's Russian spies or French spies or who would be spying on us, to the regime that has said, and the regime that has the power to do something about it, and that's the communist Chinese. So watch for this senior Chinese official who has defected. Now, I am told, again, the reporting is really early, so we can't rely on it completely. It could be wrong, that the Chinese regime brought this up to Secretary of State Antony Blinken when they were in Alaska for that meeting a month or two ago, and that Antony Blinken didn't know anything about it, which is embarrassing enough, actually, that the Secretary of State who's going to meet with senior officials doesn't know. I guess it could be because it was yet to be processed and they didn't want to have to admit it or whatever. But The Chinese regime, when they visited in Alaska, asked Antony Blinken about it and said, we want that guy back. And he didn't know about it. So that's embarrassing enough. If I was him, I would have probably come back and put the China desk, they call it, in the Secretary of State's, in the Department of State, there's a desk for each of the regions. There's a China desk with a bunch of analysts. I probably would have got that guy into my office and said, what the heck happened here? Or that gal, whoever it was. But what you now know, we knew it before, but we know it concretely, and we're going to know more because of this defection, is that the communist regime is against America. So far, what's leaked, again, could be wrong, could be spin, is that this defector had a bunch of information on Wuhan, had a bunch of information on spies, had a bunch of information on other aspects of what they're doing, all stuff that's predictable. It's very predictable. The only thing that's not as predictable as what happened from the 1950s into the 80s with the other communist regime, the Soviets, is that the Chinese they have a sort of a longer view. And I think that they're playing a longer game, and they're willing to utilize aspects of American life in a way that the Soviets may not have done. They were sort of in a hurry, the Soviets. It was a new movement right after World War II for the Soviets. And the other thing that the Chinese have is the internet and social media and the use of it against the American people. Again, I have said over and over again, TikTok and other entities like it should be banned. Not because of the data necessarily, that's one point, but because of the influence they're having over the American people. We can't even see how they're doing it. They're not showing us the algorithms. They're not showing us what they're doing. But you have to expand that to say, what's the influence of other social media giants on America, on the people, and how is the Chinese regime shaping that, whether by money, whether by infiltration, whatever it is. As I think it was, I'm not sure who characterized it this way. They said, if you're the Chinese, you love critical race theory because it divides America up. The strength of America was always that you came here from wherever, you became a part of this system, you bought into the vision, you were American, and it was a melting pot, and the values and the rule of law knitted us together. The Chinese, if they're not encouraging the critical race theory fight, I'd be stunned, the communist regime. And meanwhile, we're having a fight over ransomware out of Russia, which were caught. We caught those people, or at least it was identified. Or go back 4 or 5 years and say $140,000 in Facebook ads by a Russian troll farm is what we're fighting about. Don't we know? You have to believe that our government knows that the communist regime is constantly trying to hack us, trying to infiltrate, and trying to shape what's going on. So what the good news is, the China, communist China story may be shifting because the American people can get a view of it. The bad news is the Biden administration isn't particularly interested in being hardline. They want to be friends. They want to go back to the model that failed under the Democrats, Obama, failed under the Republicans, Bush, in the last 25 years of, we'll just interact with the Chinese. We'll say mean things when we run for office. We'll say hardline things, but we get in. Will ultimately cave because we want access to their markets and access to their people, billions of people, 1.2, and access to cheap labor. It's a disaster. So watch for that. And what you now know is the communist regime they're going to expose more of it than we've ever seen, hopefully, the spies and what they're doing to America and Europe. And it'll get clearer what's at stake, I hope. We have to hope for that. And we have to expect leaders in our Congress and in national politics to point their finger at this and say, let's get to the bottom of this. Let's find a way to have a critical evaluation of what's happening at every level of government and the public life. All right, that's what you know now. By the way, I had a great visit to Texas. That's where I was, and one of the people I saw was Floyd Brown, who does the Western Journal. His company owns the Western Journal. That's a great site, the Western Journal. If you haven't been there every day, you're missing a lot of stuff. So the Western Journal, check it out. It's really a good one. And all right, everybody, we'll talk to you later. I'm going up to Philadelphia later today to meet with a couple of folks that are fighting the fight up there, and I'll report back later. Have a great day, everybody. God bless.